SynthStories starts right now.
Am I the a-hole for telling my sisters their houses better be clean every day since they're stay-at-home moms? I, 35 female, and have two sisters, Jane, 33 female, and Gil, 30 female. I had a day off recently and invited them to breakfast since we haven't really had time like that together since I started my new job 2 years ago. While we were talking, I mentioned that my husband is annoyed that we pay my mom to clean our house every 2 weeks. He thinks we only need her once a month. What bothered me is that for over 10 years, I worked full-time, was basically a single parent half the year because his job has him out of town for 6+ months, and I still did about 95% of the cleaning. Even when he was home, nothing really changed. I worked, I parented, I cleaned. I was exhausted all the time and my depression/anxiety were always through the roof. Before I went back to school and started this more demanding career, teacher, I told him straight up, if I'm doing this, I'm not carrying the housework anymore. He agreed. So I stopped. I have never been happier. When I told my sisters he said I should be doing more around the house, they basically agreed with him. Jane said our house is just dirty and that it's not that hard to make my son clean up. That really hurt. They know how much housework I've carried for years with almost no help. Could we do 50-50? Maybe, but I know that will end up with me just doing it all again and I refuse. I told them I'm mentally, emotionally, and physically drained from teaching teenagers all day. During the summer, when I'm off for months, we don't even have my mom clean because I can manage it. But during the school year? I don't have it in me. I also pointed out that the mess isn't even mine. My bedroom and bathroom are clean. The clutter is mostly from my husband and son. They brushed that off and basically said that doesn't count. At that point I snapped. I said it's easy to call me lazy when they've never worked a day in their life. I said if I didn't work, my house would probably be spotless too because I wouldn't be exhausted all the time. Out of spite, I also said that since they stay home, their houses should be clean every day because it's the least they could do. Especially since their kids are at school all day. They were mad, especially Jane. She reminded me that she helps a ton with raising my son and his extracurriculars, which is true. All these years she's been a huge help and I am genuinely grateful. I don't think that I would have made it to where I am without her and my mom's support. But I told her she doesn't get to call me lazy and expect me to just take it. I always back her up when she says her husband doesn't do enough at home. I chose to be a working mom because I know how hard being a stay-at-home mom is. I could never do it. I'm just tired of being labeled the lazy one because I don't cook every meal, keep a perfect house, or do all the traditional wife stuff. We can afford to pay someone to clean. That's the choice we made. And unless my husband wants to step up and take over most of the housework, I'm not going back to doing it all. I did that for over a decade. Done being judged for not wanting to live like that anymore. So am I the a-hole for telling my sisters their houses better be clean every day since they're stay-at-home moms? Edit. Thanks everyone for replying. I have read all of the comments, even the negative ones, and it's put stuff in perspective. I agree with the PPL that said we are all a-hole. I think they shouldn't have told me stuff, but I also shouldn't have said stuff. This is a subject that triggers me and I lashed out because of it. I will bring it up again, but they may not want to talk about it. I'll give it a try anyways. As for my sisters, they can be judgy, but so can I. As I get older I try to be better, but I don't always succeed. As far as the stay-at-home mom, I do not feel like they should have their house spotless. I was being ugly and petty, but I did not mean it. My sisters do a lot and have raised great kids. As far as my husband, he does more housework than I do these days. My kid on the other hand, yeah, he should have more responsibilities. I will discuss this with Hubs to give him set chores around the house. Update, for the first time in our lives we apologized to each other over something we said. Thanks everyone! I am trying hard to be emotionally mature and change the way we were raised, but it doesn't always work out. I don't know what I am doing, but as the oldest I should try to lead us to a place where we treat ourselves better.
My 27 female boyfriend, 28 male, is insistent on living with his best friend, 27 female, and the entire situation makes me uncomfortable. Is there any way to move forward? I, 27 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 28 male, for about 9 months now. We live about half an hour away from each other, so we see each other a couple times during the week and spend most weekends at his house together. He currently lives with Kate, his best friend, 27 female, Kate's now ex-boyfriend, and another couple in his house. The couples in the house each have shared rooms, and he has his own room. I also live with roommates, but I'm at a point in my life where I'd like to not have roommates anymore and want to live with my partner. My lease is up in June this summer, and his is up in August, and a number of months ago, I floated the idea of us potentially living together when our leases are up. He was open to the idea but never gave a definite answer on the subject, which is fair because it was still somewhat early in the relationship, and it didn't come up again until this past January. In January, we were having conversation, and he brought up how he and his best friend Kate, 27 female, were going to have to find other people to live with them, as the other couple was moving out and her boyfriend wanted to move abroad for a year. I was pretty upset by this statement, as I had assumed that the two of us would at least have a discussion about our living plans for the next year, and it seemed like he and Kate were already set on their plans together that he made without me. He had stated that he never remembered having a conversation about us potentially moving in together, and wasn't even sure if he felt ready to move in together when our leases are up. We had a whole discussion about shared decision-making, how we view the relationship. I view it as more of a team approach, and he seems to view relationships as independent people who spend a significant amount of time together, and moving plans. Honestly, I was ready to end it then, but he fought for continuing the relationship, and after a long conversation, we wrapped things up, and I felt okay about things. The next day, we both ended up doing some hiking together in the morning, and I went biking in the afternoon with a couple friends who live in his town. When I came back, I was incredibly tired and went to lay down in his bed while he volunteered to make dinner. At this point, Kate came into the kitchen, and they started discussing their living plans again together. I could overhear a little bit, and for a while they discussed trying to get another couple to move in or a few other people. But at one point, Kate stated that if that didn't work out, she and my boyfriend could just get their own apartment together. When I heard that, I got pretty upset, so I started packing my things, went out to grab my shoes, and stated that I think it was time that I headed home. My boyfriend could tell I was not okay, and when I went back to grab stuff from his room, we ended up having a huge fight about how we had just had a conversation about shared decision-making, and he blatantly ignored that. At this point, I didn't even care about us living together. If someone isn't ready, I'm not going to force them. But I did have a major problem with him essentially being okay, having another woman live alone with him, and them playing house together. I brought up the fact that her comment about them getting an apartment together was a slap in the face to me, and super disrespectful of our relationship. I already didn't like Kate, as there have been numerous interactions between the two of them that have made me uncomfortable. He has an emotional connection with her that supersedes ours, and has gone to her with things that he could have talked to me about even while I've been at his house. One time he received a sketchy text from his ex while we were sitting in his basement together, and he showed me briefly before going upstairs to have a whole vent session with Kate about it, while he left me sitting there alone for over half an hour until I finally went upstairs and joined. They're both doing their PhDs, and they always insist on studying together. He's even said that he can't be productive unless he's studying with her. Every time we go to a coffee shop together so he can study and I can read. Surprise, she's already there. She's also very flirty with him and has more eyes for him than her own boyfriend. So yeah, I don't love their vibe together. I shared all of these things with him, some of which he knew already, and some that I hadn't mentioned because he gets very defensive of her. He insisted that there's nothing between them, that she and her boyfriend were essentially destined to get married, and he's not attracted to her. He even used the classic cliche line of "she's like a sister to me." They met in grad school, they're not childhood friends. I stated that it felt like he was prioritizing her feelings over mine because he has no problem with me trying to find an expensive apartment, high COL area, on my own or having to find random roommates for a house in his town, but he feels bad if she has to do the same, and he can't just tell her no now. So I blatantly stated that one of my boundaries is not being number 2 in my own relationship, and if he insists on having to live with her, I will walk away from this. I didn't state he had to cut her off or stop being friends with her, but that's a hard no for me, especially since her boyfriend would be gone, and she'd be relying on him for emotional support, which would further cement their emotional connection over ours. He took some time to process that, but I didn't back down from it. The conversation ended with us agreeing to revisit things in a month and see if anything has improved then. We're now a month out and had the moving conversation again. Kate and her boyfriend had broken up about a couple weeks ago. Can't say that one surprised me. So I doubled down on how uncomfortable I was about her and my boyfriend living together. It ended up getting heated again because I held my ground on my boundary. My boyfriend continued to insist on living with her and maybe some other roommates as well. I pushed back, stated that his insistence on living with her was pretty concerning at this point, and asked if there were no other options. He said he would try and find different friends to move in with, but that there weren't many options. So he wasn't sure what to do if that was the only choice. I'm torn between just leaving this relationship now, given the lack of respect for me and my feelings, or seeing how things play out and making my decision then. Any advice?
Am I the a-hole for not allowing my dad and sister to live with us after I just had a baby, and their home was ruined by a neighbor's house fire? Background post 1, January 31st, 2026. Title: How long after a house fire can someone return? My dad's neighbor's place burned to the ground the other night. The wind kicked up and the siding melted on my dad's place. The windows shattered and the blinds inside melted. Everyone is safe, thank God. The water, electric, and gas have been shut off to be safe. We collected some things in the dark and freezing cold last night. My sister said she didn't know if it would be a weekend thing or a 2-month-plus thing. Has anyone experienced this or know what happens? The adjuster came out and looked around. And the development owner, they rent, said they would have someone out to repair the siding ASAP. But I feel like the siding is the least of the worries. I know it's dependent on the damage, but we haven't heard anything since the firefighters left yesterday. Thank you. Original post, February 2nd, 2026. 2 days later, to start, I needed to escape from living with my dad and sister many years ago. I moved in with my boyfriend, now husband, in college 10 years ago. They're irresponsible, siphon money, and don't take care of anything. My sister is a narcissist, and I have been in therapy for years. I had a baby recently and I'm writing this post on 3 hours of sleep. I'm exhausted and burned out. I'm a working mom, my husband works too, and we're still in survival mode. Their neighbor's house caught fire and burned to the ground. My dad and sister's home was close, the siding melted, windows cracked, blinds melted, inside smells like smoke. No one was hurt. My dad and sister still have their belongings. Utilities are off and insurance companies are looking into everything. No clue how long this will take or what is going to happen. However, my dad has tons of medical problems and equipment and would need to stay on the main floor. There is nowhere for him to stay aside from the living room, our only common area, and this is where the baby spends most days. Baby is at an age where he will grab and chew on anything, including small parts for medical supplies. My dad would need to use the bathroom on the main floor. He is not careful when he goes, to put it politely. He refuses to clean and has been extremely disorganized since I was born. Medically it's different now, I can't fault him for not being able to complete everyday tasks. My concern is the possibility of incontinence, and being around the baby is worrisome due to health concerns. As well as me needing to mother my own father on top of my son. My sister and her cat have already been staying with us over the weekend. Dad is considered a displaced senior with medical necessities, so the hospital has taken him for now. They want him out soon. My husband has a mild cat allergy, so we can't keep the cat in the house for long. My sister is disrespectful and rude. I'm used to ignoring her, but my husband is livid. She watched us put away groceries. I had to ask her to help with dishes after she ate a meal that I cooked, and she brought over my dad's dirty laundry and didn't do it because she went to an activity for fun. My husband is currently doing it while I'm at work, and I have to run it to my dad tonight in the hospital. She talks and talks without ever stopping. She is selfish and doesn't think about anyone except herself. My husband put his foot down, and I agreed. We spoke with my sister and gave her a 2-week max that she could stay. She started to cry. This gives her plenty of time to work with the landlord, they rent, and the insurance to be placed into temporary housing. I feel very, very guilty though. Been working on not people-pleasing, but I feel like this is different. But I can't do this. I'm already at the end of my rope. I need to put my son first. I can't do more than this. 2 weeks is even difficult. Am I the a-hole? Update post, February 6, 2026. 4 days later, thank you all for your feedback, words of encouragement, blunt honesty, and reminders to set firm boundaries and to take care of my husband and son first. I refuse to allow my father and his medical equipment into our home. There were no arguments there, especially when it came down to the safety and cleanliness of my baby's living environment. The cat allergies became severe for not only my husband, but myself. I held firm that my sister and her cat had to be gone from our home immediately for our health. We couldn't breathe. I told my sister to book a pet-friendly hotel room with her own card, and thanks to a Reddit user's suggestion to help her move along quickly, we sent her the money to cover 2 nights to get her out of our hair. We gave her cash and are not expecting it back. Not ideal, but she is gone, her stuff is out of our house, and we are looking for a cleaning company to help us get rid of the dander.
Am I the a-hole for blocking my stepsister for not being invited to her wedding? I, 23 female, was born by my mother and father. They had 3 kids. Older brother and younger brother. My dad and mom got divorced and he married my stepmom who had a daughter already with her previous marriage. And then had a son together. For a clearer picture it looks like this. Male full blood 26 female stepsister 25 me 23 male full blood 16 male half blood 14 I am the middle out of 5. My dad and mom separated when I was about 4 and my mom left us when I was about 7, my brothers were 1 and 10. Before my dad married my stepmom, he would schedule play dates between me and my sister to which we became best friends and ecstatic when they told us they were getting married that we would be sisters. I have never said my sister was my stepsister so I will refer that way the rest of this post. My sister was an only child before our parents met. She was extremely spoiled. She collected all the toys from American Girl dolls to Monster High to littlest pet shops. If I had something she wanted she would get it but I wasn't allowed to have anything she had, which in hindsight is unfair but I was very blind to it. So I always had one to her 20 or more. She definitely preferred it this way but I was a kid so I didn't care and never was jealous. The court took my brothers and I away from my mom for abuse and neglect so I was happy to have anything. Throughout the years we did everything together, even her custody with her father. I would have many sleepovers at her father's house when she was over there for custody and go on vacations with his grandma. But the older we got we started to separate. She became very popular in school in that mean girl cheerleader way and I was an extreme people pleaser, still am, and I had friends in every group. So a different kind of popular. My sister and I still hung out after school and she opened up to me about everything. But when I shared personal things with her she made fun of me or mocked me. I won't go to details because I'm sure this post will be long as it is but one incident she went and told a bunch of people at school and I got made fun of by a lot of people. Again though, I never thought too much about it, I was aware but I didn't care because I idolized my sister so much. Some backstory into our family. My dad and stepmom were very strict. Like ridiculously. But my sister didn't really have to follow the rules as much as the rest of us did. Because she had no rules at her dad's, her rules were a lot less strict with my stepmom's fear of her living full-time at her dad's. My brother and I had to ride the bus, she was driven to school every day. We weren't allowed to have electronics in our room, she slept with hers. We had to make a plate and eat at the table, she could take her food upstairs or get something else if she didn't like it. She could wear whatever clothes she wanted while I was forced to wear baggy clothes that covered my butt even with wearing pants. I would mention the unfairness but it again didn't bother me as much because I idolized her. Well about the age she was 15 and I was 13, I think, something happened one night that I'm still not 100% of today. My sister would sleep naked or almost close to it and I think my older brother snuck in there to look under her covers. My brother still denies it to this day but from that night forward it destroyed our family. My brother went to a boarding school the next day and my sister went to live with her dad full-time and I never really saw them again. My brother was a troublemaker and I guess they didn't want me turning out like he did so they were more strict on me from then on. I 100% lived Cinderella. I did all the chores, had no contact with the outside world, no phone and no electronics, could not hang out with people after school, and was constantly bullied by my stepmom. My sister's room was locked and stayed the exact same until we moved out. I would sneak in there and wear her clothes a lot. My parents wouldn't buy me new clothes so I wore her hand-me-downs, but I was a stick and she was a little bigger than I was so I chose instead to wear her clothes. For example, her size 13 clothes fit her at 13 but didn't fit me until I was 16 and I didn't want to wear just as clothes in high school. She found out that I started wearing her clothes when she saw me at school wearing one of her shirts and told her mom. I got into a lot of trouble but to this day, she never went back to get those clothes. They're still in a Tupperware in their basement. I know she was mad at me for wearing her clothes and I think her mom thinks that I'm part of the reason why she wouldn't ever come back home. We moved houses and I moved schools so I never really saw her again after that. She never came to any events even when my brother wasn't going to be there. I think she blames what happened as a reason for not being around at all but I think she's just selfish. It happened almost 10 years ago but she still doesn't see my younger brothers or her mom. When I turned 15 I got a job and worked extra shifts to avoid being home. I wasn't allowed a license so I walked to each job sometimes at 11 at night. I eventually became extremely depressed when I wasn't working or at school, and coming home for breaks and weekends meant being around my family. I started taking on a hurtful way of dealing with my stress that I used until I was 20. I moved out at 18 and moved to another state, and after 2 years I found a meaning to my life. My sister and I exchanged texts for holidays and her birthday. She texts me for my birthday too, but sometimes a couple days late. We catch up and talk about what's going on with her life, and she always ends up leaving me on read. Her birthday is in July and mine's in April. Every time we text she apologizes for leaving me on read, and we pick back off just to get left on read again. About a year ago, 2024, she announced to be engaged. I liked all her posts on Instagram, so I was so happy for her. Fast forward, I end up forgetting about it, but she posted something on her story saying 2 months till the wedding. I immediately scrolled through all of her posts, my DMs, and checked my mailbox to see if I had received an invite. I was confused but still hopefully to receive one. I know we weren't close, but I was her sister. We had no bad blood. I decided I was going to give it 1 month. Never been to a planned wedding before, only shotgun weddings, because I thought a month before the wedding was the smallest amount of time someone could give someone a notice to be invited. I set a reminder in my phone. My birthday passed around and she didn't send me a text. When that reminder went off on my phone a month later, my heart sank. I checked my mailbox one last time and cried like an idiot just staring at my mailbox full of spam and bills. I checked her Instagram to see another post that said, 1 month left till I'm with my forever person. I debated sending her a text, but I figured she would have reached out if she wanted me there. So I blocked her, on everything. Her wedding came around and you'll never believe who was there. Both my younger brothers were her groomsmen and my step-cousins, 17 and 15, were her bridesmaids. I saw the photos on my stepmom's Facebook. I understand not being her maid of honor, maybe if we were still close, but we weren't. Maybe even not her bridesmaid, but not even a guest at her wedding? And from the photos it didn't look small. So Reddit, my question is, am I the a-holy for just blocking her? Should I have tried to let her explain or have sent her a text?
Am I the a-hole because I want my wife to ask permission before taking our son on playdates? Original post, February 1st, 2026. My wife and I have a 2-year-old. I work Sunday through Thursday. Yes, I'm at work right now, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. She works Thursday through Sunday, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. So we make it work. Here's the problem. When I get off work, I like to spend time with my child. I also like to spend time with my child on my days off. Frequently, I will be with our son, and my wife will say they're leaving to go on a play date with one of her friends. Or I will get home and they're already gone. I try to have a conversation with my wife about the play dates. I asked if we could put them in the calendar so I know when they are, and maybe carve some specific slots out just for me and our son. I feel like we are being deprived of quality time. She asked why we aren't spending time together while she is at work. I said because his bedtime is at 7. She said that gives us 2 hours, but that's when I get him ready for bed. She said, is that not quality time? I said I really want time set aside for me and our son. She said sometimes playdates get scheduled last second. I said it's okay to tell her friends no, that we're busy. She said she doesn't need my permission to take our son on a playdate. I said that's not what I said, and she said no, but that I'm saying it without saying it. She also said that playdates are good for our son, and he gets fresh air and socializations, and that all I want to do is sit on the couch with him and watch cartoons and call it bonding. She did the finger quotes. This is not true. On my days off, I want to take our son places and do things, but I can't because she has already claimed that time. We can only do things if we do them early in the morning while she is asleep, which we do, but she doesn't see that and doesn't acknowledge it. Yes, when I've been working all day, sometimes I want to watch my favorite childhood cartoons with my son for maybe an hour. Is that terrible? We're basically stuck. We both think the other is being insanely unreasonable. I want us to talk and figure out a good schedule together. She thinks I'm being controlling. She messaged her friend group chat and sent me screenshots of all her friends saying I'm wrong. I can't do that because I don't want to talk about a fight with my wife to my friends. So what do you guys think? Update. Since so many of you said I was being too passive, I made a calendar and blocked out Friday. I sent it to her and told her I was taking our son to my friend's house to meet his animals. She said no, because there will probably be a play date. I told her he will have to miss the play date. She stopped responding for a bit and then sent me screenshots of her friend group chat where they all say I'm a jackass, and one even said she should just call the police and report him as kidnapped. I said, don't you think friend's name is being a little insane? She responded, just please stop trying to control what I do. You have son's name when I'm at work. You don't need to have him all day. When you get to friend's name, as house, you're just going to sit around and watch TV. I said we're going to meet his animals, and that's the plan, and it's happening. She stopped responding. I assume she's back to the group chat. I also sent her a screenshot of one of the comments here, and she said I was being immature posting online. But her posting to the group chat is very mature, I guess. Update, February 1st, 2026, same day, 12 hours later. So I initially posted this morning at work about how I tried to talk to my wife about her kid's schedule. She said I was telling her to ask permission to take him on playdates. I just wanted us to decide together as a couple, so I could spend more time with our son. She didn't like that. Most of the responses were really nasty. A lot of people didn't believe the situation or didn't even understand it. At first, I was incredibly frustrated. Then I realized the fact that so many people don't even believe this is happening proves how abnormal it is. Several people told me to just make a calendar and send it to her, which I did. Her reaction was very negative. A lot of people also said to just go pick him up from the play date when I get off work. So I did. When I got to the park, it was empty. This was reasonable because it's freezing outside. I went into the cafe. My wife was sitting at a table with her friends, drinking coffee. The kids, including our son, were sitting on the floor playing on tablets. Our son doesn't have a tablet, so it must have been a spare from one of the other kids. I said hello, and my wife had an immediate negative reaction. Her whole body got tense. Her face tightened up. She asked why I was there. I said I came to get our son so we can go home and spend some time together. She said he's on a play date. I picked him up and took the tablet away, setting it on the table. She got defensive about the tablet, even though I hadn't said anything about it yet. She said it's cold outside. I said, yeah, I know. I said we were going to go, but to have fun with her friends. She told me to stop and said I was humiliating her. I said I would see her at home. When I got home, my son and I spent some time together. We watched one episode of our favorite cartoon, and then we played make-believe with his toys. We made dinner together and were eating when my wife came home to get ready for work. She said I embarrassed her in front of her friends and accused me of trying to destroy her support network. I said she accuses me of always wanting to watch TV with our kid, but she had him just sitting on the ground with a tablet. How is that better than watching one episode of a cartoon he and I both like? She said it's because his friends were there. She also kept yelling over and over that it was cold outside, which freaked out her son. She said, look what you did, even though she was the one yelling. I took her to the bathroom and bathed him. She had already left for work when we were done. I read to him from a storybook, and he went to bed. He's been asleep for an hour and a half. Since my wife gets off work in a couple hours, I've just been replaying everything that happened in my mind over and over again. I know she's going to be mad when she gets home. I don't want to fight again, but I have a feeling we're going to fight again. Update. When my wife came home last night, I told her I want counseling. She said no. I told her we can't go on like this, that it isn't fair to our son. She told me I need to work more and leave the parenting to her because she is the mom. She said if I did my job as a provider, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in. I said that is never going to happen. I said I already work a lot and am not going to do more. If she wants the relationship to improve, we need counseling because what she thinks is going to make her happy is never going to happen. So we need to work together to find another solution. She said no again. I asked what she wants to do to work on our marriage. She said she wants me to stop being like this. I asked what she is willing to do for our marriage, or if it is only me that needs it changed. She said it's me. I said then let's get divorced, because neither of us is making the other happy. She said yes. She then wanted me to get out of bed and relocate to the guest room. I said no. She told me I had to. I admit I was a bit of a jerk. I made fun of her and asked if this is different from what her friends said would happen. She started to cry and asked why I was making this difficult. I said I wasn't. She got in bed and we went to sleep. As I was leaving for work this morning, she came out of our room and said she would do the counseling if I moved out of the house. I said no. She said she'll do it if I move to the guest bedroom. I said no. She said it's customary for the wife to stay and the husband to leave. I told her divorce is whatever the people doing it make it, and her friends lied to her. She said not to talk about her friends like that. I said I could say way worse about her friends, but I have to go to work. She said she would go to the counseling so I can see how wrong I am. I called my insurance half an hour ago, and they emailed me a list of people they cover. I'm working my way down the list now. Update number 2, in comments February 9th, 2026, 8 days later from the first update. We have a counseling appointment scheduled for Wednesday after I get off work. I took our son to my friend's house Friday. We had an amazing time together. She was texting me the whole time, demanding I come home so she can take him on a play date. I said no the first few times and then started ignoring her. She was already at work when we got home. After the bedtime routine, I texted her that I was going to make dinner for her. She didn't answer. When she got home, dinner was waiting for her. I asked her to sit with me and eat together. At first, she didn't want to, but I made her favorite, so she agreed. She was really angry. She said she didn't see our son all day. I said that's what she wants my life to be like. She said moms have a stronger connection to their kids. I told her I have just as strong a connection to our son as her. She said I'm wrong. I said I don't know about other men, but I love our kid. Maybe I messed up. Maybe I'm part woman. She rolled her eyes at me. I said I did research, and if we divorce, we'll get 50-50 custody. I said realistically, I'll get custody on the days she is working because no daycare is open until 11 p.m. I'll have 2 full days to spend with him and 2 half days. I'll get what I want. I said if we divorce, we'd have to sell this house and each rent our own place. She'd probably have to work even more hours than she does now. She started crying. I just sat there. I didn't comfort her. She asked why I wasn't saying anything. I said I was waiting for the show to be over. She threw a napkin at me. She said I must be happy. I said I'm not happy because she's not happy, and her unhappiness infects the whole home. I said I want us to be happy together. We used to be happy together. I asked if she was going to make an effort at counseling. She said that her friends told her that if we divorced, she would get full custody and I would have to pay for her and our son to stay in the house. I asked, are you going to believe them, or are you going to make an effort at couples counseling? She said she would think about it. Yesterday, when I got home from work, she was at home. She handed me our son and said she did her own research. I thought she was going to tell me we were done. She said she was going to give the counseling a try. That's the update. Hopefully things go well Wednesday.
Am I the a-hole for considering a breakup after boyfriend bailed on being my surgery ride? I, 29 female, have been with my boyfriend, 39 male, for about a year and a half. He's kind, social, and really busy. Early on he told me he's bad at planning, which I accepted. In reality, it meant I adapted to him. Our time together was usually, probably Friday, or maybe Sunday, and I'd wait until the day of to know if we were actually seeing each other. Over time, I've noticed I was basically the only flexible part of his life. He never misses poker night, gym class, or frequent family dinners. Those are always set, but with me, plans stay loose. I stopped pushing and just opted to keep my schedule open, telling myself that if I wanted to see him, this was how it worked. There have been some occasions where plans were kept. We've been on 2 vacations, for instance, but when it comes to more routine life, this is the pattern I've noticed. It does bother me, but in the end, he is available and we see each other pretty frequently. And when we do see each other, he is focused and attentive. I guess that's why I put up with it. It felt like a planning issue, not really a priorities issues, or a quality time issue. But last week, something changed in me. I had a medical procedure scheduled one morning, a minor surgery, but I did go under, and I couldn't drive afterward, or take a ride share. BC, the hospital won't let you. He had told me earlier in the week that he'd be free and would take me. That morning, he texted saying he'd forgotten and had already committed to helping a friend move. He suggested I take an Uber and said we'd make it up another time. I explained that I couldn't and that this was surgery and I'd really like to not have to worry about this at 6:30 a.m. day of. He caved but was standoffish when he picked me up, which obviously was not great after being intubated. Last night, I told him how bothered I was. He said I was being unfair because I know how he is with planning and that I hadn't really stressed the importance of this. To be fair, I don't think I had mentioned the Uber thing to him prior. But, through the conversation, it just seemed to me that this was nothing to do with the details. I just wasn't being prioritized. I realized I'd been enabling this by staying vague, available, and accepting scraps because it felt easier than asking for more. I told him I don't want to continue like this and that this affected my ability to trust him in a serious situation. He says I'm overreacting and punishing him for a one-time mistake that is partly on me. Some friends say I trained him to treat me this way and I should try to salvage. I feel done. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the jerk for not stopping my barbecue after my neighbor called the police and got herself arrested? So I was at my friend's place helping him prep food for a get-together he was having that weekend. We were out back grilling. It was late, like around 11, but we weren't being loud. No music, no yelling, just 2 guys standing around a grill talking and flipping meat. That's it. Out of nowhere, his neighbor from across the street comes marching over. Doesn't say hi, doesn't ask nicely, just immediately starts going off about how we need to shut it down and go inside. My friend tried to be polite and said we're just cooking, it's not that serious. She kept saying what we were doing was illegal. At first she said grilling at night was against the law. My friend was like, no it's not. Then she switched it up and said we were cooking illegal meat. I literally looked at him like, what does that even mean? Illegal meat? What are we grilling, endangered species out here? She went back to her house and we figured that was the end of it. Nope. About 10 minutes later, a cop pulls up. The officer was honestly pretty chill about the whole thing. Asked us what was going on. We explained we were just grilling food in the backyard. He checked our IDs, which felt weird, but whatever. The whole time she's standing right there getting in the officer's face, repeating that we were cooking illegal meat. Over and over. The cop kept trying to talk and she just wouldn't stop interrupting him. Then it happened. The officer told her she was being arrested. Disturbing the peace and misusing emergency services. I watched this woman get put in the back of a patrol car because she called 911 over a barbecue. We just stood there watching it happen. My friend looked at me and was like, "Do we keep grilling?" And yeah, we did. Am I the jerk?
My husband tried to surprise me with a threesome. Pre-apologize for my writing. I am not very good at putting thoughts into words. I, 30 female, have been with my 31 male husband Will for 10 years. We have a nice quiet life together and what I think is a good partnership. Our sex life isn't the greatest, but it's not something that's ever really bothered me. Last year Will makes a new friend, we'll call him Martin. Martin and Will become good friends and I eventually meet him. A few months after I first meet Martin, he begins texting me privately, not frequently but just a couple of times. I tell Will about this and he says, "Oh, he just wants to get to know you. I found this odd but moved on." Then a while later Martin texts me again and it's a picture of him shirtless in the mirror and he asks me for a picture of myself. I again found this very odd and bring it up with Will. Will says, "Sorry, I thought you would like it." A month or so passes since that incident and I've half forgotten about this. Until I come home from a long day at work and Martin is at our house. I don't think too much of it. Through all, Will and Martin are good friends. They are hanging out and I'm eating some dinner when Will says we should all watch a movie. I tell him I'm not interested and just want to relax. I go to our room and lay down to scroll on my phone before bed. Will comes in basically begging me to come watch the movie with him and Martin. At this point I'm questioning why he's so insistent that I watch a movie with them. But I give in and get up to go watch the movie with them in our spare bedroom. We're all laying across the bed when Will gets up to go get something. When he comes back, our spots on the bed have rearranged to where I am now laying next to Martin. This makes me uncomfortable, so I scoot away. At one point, Martin actually texts me telling me to move closer to him. I get up and leave the room because I'm just in shock at WTF is going on. Martin eventually leaves and me and Will go to bed. The next day I confront Will over the situation and ask, "Were you trying to get me to have a threesome with your friend?" He reluctantly confirms this. I was in such shock. We had an extended discussion over what happened, including how much of a betrayal of my trust this was and how disrespectful it was to just spring that on me with no prior discussion. I asked him why he thought I would be interested in having a threesome. His response was because of a lot of the books I read, romantasy, dark romance. Needless to say, this really made our relationship take a turn. We haven't had sex in months, and I do not feel the same about him anymore. I can tell his mental health has declined as well. He has been really apologetic and wants to move past this, but I don't know if I can. I want to get past this. We were a good team, but I just feel so betrayed and confused. I have brought up getting couples counseling, but Will got offended by the idea and said we can just talk at home. I think we both need individual counseling and couples counseling to get to the root of what caused this. Also of note, Martin has a girlfriend who did not know about this. As a kind of side story, I want to add that Will is very much not a jealous type and has let me take trips and share a hotel room with my male best friend, which I find odd. I also want to make some clarifications about these trips. I would never present the idea of traveling alone with my male friend to Will. Will is the one who said I should take him. He says he trusts me, which is great. I'm not going to betray his trust. I just find it odd that he's almost pushing me to have relationships with other men. Is this an insecurity thing or a kink? I don't understand. I'm not sure what exact advice I'm looking for. I just don't really have anyone I can talk about this with. Too long, didn't read. My husband tried to get me to have a threesome with his friend. Is my relationship recoverable and what do I need to do?
Am I overreacting? My boyfriend's mom secretly filmed us and called me a slut. Might be a bit long, but please bear with me. I, 21 female, have been staying over at my boyfriend's, 23 male, house more often recently. He still lives at home while saving up, which I didn't think would be a huge deal. His mom has always been a bit off but polite to my face. Here's the issue. She has a camera in the living room. It's mounted high up in the corner and is on pretty much all the time. The first time I noticed it, I laughed because I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. It makes me really uncomfortable. I already struggle with how I am perceived by his family. I want them to like me, so sitting on a couch knowing his mom can open an app and just watch me feels very Big Brother. My boyfriend agreed it was weird, and when we're alone watching a film, we'd sometimes unplug it. His mom noticed and got annoyed. She said we need to stop taking it out and that it's there for security. My boyfriend argued back and said we don't feel comfortable being recorded when we're just watching TV. After a bit of back and forth, she said fine, we can turn it off when we're in there. I thought that was the end of it. A few weeks later, we were watching a movie at night. The camera was off, or so we thought. We were cuddling and kissing. It didn't go further than that. At one point I was touching him over his clothes, but that was it. We weren't having sex. We weren't naked. Yes, maybe we shouldn't have been doing that, but it honestly didn't seem deep to me at the time. She never explicitly said she has an issue with PDA or us being alone there, so I'm not sure what she thought would happen. Anyway, the next day, my boyfriend gets a message from his mom. It's a video of me and my boyfriend that night from a completely different angle. She had apparently hidden another camera somewhere in the room that we didn't know about. She sent him the clip and said, "This is what that slut is doing in my house." I don't even know how to explain how I felt reading that. I was so embarrassed and violated. I felt physically sick knowing she had watched it back. That she recorded us. That she saved it. That she sent it to my boyfriend, and who knows how many other people. My boyfriend was angry and confronted her. She said it's her house and she has the right to know what's happening in her living room. She said if I respected myself I wouldn't be acting like that. I keep thinking, how long has she been recording? Where else are there cameras? What if she sends it to other people? What if she keeps it? This happened this morning and I haven't spoken about it with my boyfriend properly since. I just left his house crying and I haven't been picking up his calls. A small part of me feels ashamed because technically it is her house, but another part of me feels like this is so violating and disgusting. I haven't told anyone else and I don't know what to do. Am I overreacting for saying I don't want to step foot in that house again? It's even making me uncomfortable being with my boyfriend, I don't know why.
My 31 female, boyfriend, 31 male, assumes I'll take on a $25K loss because of his decisions. I, 31 female, have been with my boyfriend, 30 male, for 2 years and living together for one that he's generally thoughtful, kind, and attentive. We've talked seriously about getting engaged this summer. He bought a condo before we started dating. His parents encouraged him to do it and helped with the down payment. He didn't live on his own before that, and they also paid for his education. For context on me, I lost my mom 10 years ago. My dad has been sick for years. I moved home for 2 years to rebuild financially after living in a high cost of living area. I just paid off my student loans and have worked really hard to build up my savings. Financial security is extremely important to me because I don't really have a safety net / anywhere to go if anything were to happen to my dad. He now wants to sell his condo because after running the numbers, he thinks we'd save more money renting together long term. I'm open to renting, even though my monthly costs would increase, because I'd be part of the decision, location, space, etc. The issue: he'd likely take about a $25,000 loss after fees if he sells. Last night, he said he's debating selling now instead of waiting until his mortgage renewal because even if he waits, he might still be selling at a loss, and selling now gives him more time to rebuild savings. Then he said, "And realistically, it's going to be costing you $25,000 because I don't have that money." That comment really threw me. I didn't think me taking on that loss would even be up for discussion, let alone sound like the assumption, especially since he knows my views around the importance of financial security. The only way I could help would be pulling money from my RRSP, which has tax penalties and long-term opportunity cost. If I paid the initial cost, my monthly expenses would then go up, making it even harder for me to replace that money. Beyond that, Emotionally, it makes me feel very vulnerable. If something went wrong in our relationship down the line, I'd be in vulnerable position, potentially unable to leave if I wanted to. I don't want to sound selfish, but I also don't feel like I should be responsible for covering a loss on an asset I don't own and never decided to buy, especially when I've made a lot of sacrifices to get where I am financially. He's a kind and generous partner overall, which is why this feels confusing, but it's making me second guess whether I'd feel financially safe getting engaged without clear protections in place. Am I being unreasonable for not wanting to take on this $25,000? If you were in my position, how would you protect yourself? Would you speak to a lawyer, a financial advisor, or both?
Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe.